How's it going, guys? Cody back again, dropping yet another video. Hope everybody's well. Here we are, 1st of November 2019. Got a few vlogs I need to do, so let's get straight to it. This is a story in the Birmingham Live, link in the description below like we always do. Headline reads, overdoses, rapes, injuries, Birmingham prison ambulance call out soar. Story reads, overdoses, rapes, traumatic injuries and psychiatric problems have led to jails dialing 999, according to data released under a Freedom of Information Act requests. West Midlands Ambulance Service sent ambulances to HMP Featherstone, HMP Oakwood, HMP Stafford, HMP Brinsford and HMP Birmingham on 923 occasions last year. This compared to 623 in 2013. Also, on another further 17 occasions in 2018, ambulance logged out of area activity to prisons in Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, and in 2017 an ambulance was logged at HMP Haverick in Cumbria for a patient with breathing problems. The figures obtained in the Freedom of Information Act request by Wolverhampton Liberal Democrats show the pressure that the prison systems are facing in the Midlands area. Overdoses, rape, traumatic injuries and psychiatric problems have led to jails dialing 999, according to data released under this Freedom of Information Request Act. The figures are in line with the national rise in call-outs to prisons and concerns over psychoactive substances such as spice, also known as mamba, behind bars. In HMP Featherstone, the figures showed that 999 was dialed twice for abdominal problems, 3 for peri-arrests, a case of burns, a cardiac arrest, 29 cases of chest pains, 16 cardiac back pains, 17 concerns for welfare, 1 for a case of fire, 2 mental health cases and 26 trauma cases. No guys, this isn't the 12 days of Christmas and a partridge in a pear tree. Just unbelievable statistics really. HMP Birmingham saw that 3 abdominal pains, 4 assaults or rapes. I don't know how that can be construed as different. 4 assaults or rapes. It's either a sexual assault or it's rape. 4 breathing problems, 12 domestic assaults, 3 cases of burns, 41 cases of chest pain, 3 for concerns for welfare, 12 overdoses, 2 cases of poisoning, 2 suicide attempts, 29 cases of trauma and 3 unconscious people. HMP Brinsford, 2 abdominal pains, a case of 999 being called for due to bleeding, 3 cases of breathing problems, a case of burns, 4 chest pains, 2 concerns for welfare, 3 trauma injuries and 4 traumatic trauma injuries. HMP Oakwood shows 3 cases of bleeding, 9 breathing problems, a case for burns, 65 cases of chest pain, 2 concerns for welfare, an overdose, 32 cases of trauma, a further 2 of trauma injuries, 15 specific trauma injuries. In HMP Stafford, we saw 3 allergic reactions, 3 cases of breathing problems, 21 chest pains, a convulsion, 2 strokes, 5 cases of trauma and 2 cases of unconsciousness. Commenting, Liberal Democrat parliamentary candidate for Wolverhampton South West, Bart Ricketts, that was a mouthful guys, try saying that when you've had a few beers, said, cramming more and more people into prisons they were designed to hold is a recipe for violence, drug abuse and mental distress. These figures make clear how hard being a prison officer must be, and we must thank them for their work and service. Bold action to reduce the prison population would save lives, protect staff and prevent more people being swept into deeper currents of crime, violence and despair. It must be hard for prison officers. Try being a prisoner. That's my first thing I want to say on that. Now, like I say, guys, obviously, HMP Birmingham has been beset by problems. It was a private prison. It was then taken out of, it was put from the private sector back into the public sector for a few months. And then HMP took it over full time, and the company that used to have the contracts at the prison were told they would no longer have the contract. There's problems in every prison, guys. When you hear overdoses, rapes, injuries, right? That could be any prison up and down the country, from secure training centres or STCs to young offenders institutions to female prisons to male prisons, across all categories and all different roles of prisons, obviously, locals, training jails, remand, everything. So absolutely, like, scandalous, guys. Like I say, the prison system, unfortunately, our prisons are full of very vulnerable, very susceptible, vulnerable, mentally ill prisoners. Was that a firework? Was it a gunshot? This is Manchester, who knows? But yeah, like I say, all prisons are beset by problems because, yes, there is a staffing crisis, 1,000,000%. But the fact is we've got, in the UK, we've got this lock 'em up and throw away the key mentality. It's a very short-sighted and a very knee-jerk reaction, in my opinion, as a former prisoner. And we need to have more faith in, like, community orders and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, there's kids in prison that shouldn't be. There's a lot of kids in jail that shouldn't be in prison. And people might think, what do you mean? Surely prison should be like this. To those on the right side of the tracks, I say, surely the aim of prison is obviously for rehabilitation to take place. And the idea of prison is for the most dangerous people in our society to be locked up so they can't commit offences and be a danger to the public. But like I said, I've been in prison with kids that have not paid council tax, have not paid parking fines. I've been in with murderers, armed robbers, domestic violence cases, GBH, just conspiracies, just every charge you can imagine, right? But like I say, and I've said it 1,000,000 times, I say it a lot, before most offenders have ever been offenders, guys, they've first been victims. People are like scratching their head like, what do you mean? They're just offenders, they're just violent people. It's bad people being bad or violent people being violent. And like I say, not everyone's in prison for violent offences though, are they? And most offenders, before they've ever been offenders, they've been sexually abused, grown up in care leavers, parents were addicts. Do you know what I mean? Just, they've got underlying mental health issues that have not been diagnosed. They've been raised in domestic abuse households. They've been beaten, starved, physically abused, emotionally abused, like I said, sexually abused. They've been raped. And a lot of these people then, they grow up with this sort of attitude, this with a chip on the shoulder, and they're angry and they're disenfranchised, they're desensitized, they're dehumanized. Do you know what I mean? And then a lot of these people, unfortunately, and statistics back this up, end up getting involved in criminality. And like I say, and like, is a violent person just a violent person? Or if they had a violent upbringing and then became violent because that's what they saw, is it a violent person being violent, or is it a person that has simply been a victim and then goes on to be an offender because they were simply a product of their environment? If you grow up seeing it, chances are you will grow up doing it. And like I say, we can't use bad starts in life to say, this is why I commit crime. No. But it can definitely be a contributing factor. I genuinely do believe that. And like I say, I am for prisoners all day, every day. And like I say, the sheer amount of prisoners go into prison with underlying mental health issues, either diagnosed or undiagnosed. If you go to prison with mental health condition, right, just know this, it's going to be compounded. It's going to get a lot worse. Most dangerous thing in prison, I've said this on a lot of vlogs, most dangerous thing in prison, guys, violence, no. Understaffing, no. Drugs, no. Debt, no. Most dangerous thing in prison, your own mind. You start to think, you start to analyze, you start to overthink, you start to overanalyze. You start to think irrationally, right? I've seen it firsthand. It's happened to me firsthand. I started to think the most unirrational things ever. Like, it wasn't rational at all. My brain, because I was in prison, you're paranoid. You don't know what's happening outside your cell door, outside your landing, outside the wing. Right? Yes, you've got TVs and stuff like that, and a lot of prisoners have access to mobile phones, but it's a very, very paranoid place. And the fact is, mental health services in prison are shocking. Health services in prison are shocking. And what flows from that is, like I say, violence, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, attempting suicide, or sadly and tragically, as we've seen a lot, suicide. And obviously, when you've got contraband in prison, you've got debt. Where you've got debt, you've got fear, intimidation, bullying, and violence. And the fact that the ambulance has been called out so many times for so many different prisons, it might be shocking to a lot of people, but it's not surprising when you're housing a lot of mentally ill prisoners. Because, example, they say on average it costs about £40,000 per annum to house a prisoner in prison here in the UK. If you go to a high security facility, example, there was a guy recently, alleged child murderer, I've got to use that word, from the area where I used to live, well, he was living there with his girlfriend, picks up his baby, goes to the bridge, throws the baby in to the river. He was held on the healthcare wing in cell 12 at Forest Bank. He was later sectioned, I got that story out to the media, and he's now in Ashworth High Security Hospital. To be housed in Forest Bank, give or take, about £40,000 a year. That's what they say on average. He's now in a high security facility where it will cost in excess of £350,000 a year to house him. So like I say, prisons, what I'm saying to you in layman's terms, prisons are simply cheap alternatives to mental health facilities. It's cheaper to throw a prisoner in prison, lock him up with medication, without medication, and then that person is at serious risk of self-harm, suicide, and are also very vulnerable as well, because in prison I've seen a lot of prisoners with mental health issues and mental health conditions and stuff, whether it be Asperger's, whether it be autism, whether it be paranoid schizophrenia, whether it be schizophrenia, personality disorders, and all these things that become like human guinea pigs. Other prisoners think it's funny to spike them with drugs, and when they spike them and they've taken the drug unknowingly or knowingly, because it goes on, right, then they get billed for those drugs. Then the debt increases and increases and increases, and you've got to think what's going on in that person's mind. And then they might be taking spice, which is it just fucks people royal in jail. I've seen it too many times. But this isn't a surprise, really. That's just for the ambulance. You've got to think about the cell fires, which would obviously incur the fire. You've got to think that assaults, if people are grassing in prison, which shouldn't be the case because you shouldn't grass. But if the police are getting involved as well, and the assaults and so. But like I said, this is simply a freedom of information request just on ambulances. It doesn't shock me, guys. It doesn't surprise me. And this could be, when I read the headline, overdoses, rapes and injuries, could have been any prison in England or Wales. Gonna leave it there, guys. Link in the description. Let me know what you think about the video. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Always interested to hear other people's opinions. What I would like to do as well, I would love somebody to read a story that a lot of subscribers send me stories, right? I would love to see a subscriber read the story out as I've just read it, record their opinions and their thoughts on that particular prison story, send it to me, right, on WhatsApp or whatever, right, and then I could do a video to the same extent, going over their points or agreeing with them, disagreeing with them, and we could cause a debate amongst the subscribers. Let me know what you think, guys. Gonna leave it there. Thank you for your likes, your comments, and your subscriptions. Press the bell notification on my channel. You'll be notified every time I go live or when I drop a video. I'm gonna leave it there, guys. Cody out.